social security numbers, addresses, obviously phone numbers, were all part of the breach. And there's immense damage that you can do when you have that kind of information.
An Indian company called Near Intelligence was quietly collecting huge amounts of private data from Epstein's guests, tracking their every move. Millions of Americans' personal information was just leaked on the dark web following another massive AT&T data breach. The telecom giant says 73 million of its current and former users had their sensitive information stolen, and hackers are trying to sell it. Meanwhile, we still don't have answers as to what caused the last AT&T outage back in February. So to dig deeper into this, we have cybersecurity expert Christopher Alexander joining us now. Christopher, thank you so much for being here. So how serious of a threat is this latest AT&T breach to those who have been affected?
It's pretty significant. AT&T hasn't made clear exactly who lost what data, but social security numbers, addresses, obviously phone numbers, were all part of the breach. And there's immense damage that you can do when you have that kind of information and you want to put it to ill use.
So how does this data breach compare to other breaches that you've seen and watched?
Well, the record is Yahoo, which had 3 billion data points, the users that were affected. But what's alarming about this, again, is the social security numbers, which means that you could have, if you have an income tax return on your owed money, it could be filed and collected from the IRS without your knowledge.
So hackers have struck so many big names in the last year, like Tesla, T-Mobile, 23andMe, HC Healthcare, and even Insomniac Games. It just seems like the numbers of these breaches are increasing.
Right. What they're doing, anyone who provides a service for free on the internet is collecting information about you. And that information goes to data brokers who then sell it to advertisers so they can figure out how to sell things to you more effectively. So you really should avoid collecting or giving away your information unless you absolutely have to in any transaction.
So for those who are hacked and for the rest of us, how can we protect ourselves in the future?
We hear a lot of the basic things over and over again because they're important and they work. You know, use two-factor authentication, check your credit report regularly. If you're affected by this AT&T breach or think you are, contact the IRS to make sure that someone's not trying to file a return. I think that's a really big one. And at the end of the day, passwords and things, don't take pictures of passwords with your phone. People will hack your phone and find them. You know, write it down on a piece of paper and put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the fridge or store things in a safety deposit box. But you really do need to have things that in no way have electricity running through them to store your private information on that's most important to you.
Oh, those are important tips there. Okay, we've talked about being hacked. Now let's talk about being tracked. Our smartphones are tracking our every move, and most of the time we don't even know it. Famous folks aren't getting off any easier. A new Wired investigation reveals that those who thought they were visiting Jeffrey Epstein's tropical hideout in secret really weren't. They were being tracked. An Indian company called Near Intelligence was quietly collecting huge amounts of private data from Epstein's guests, tracking their every move. Near Intelligence, a so-called data broker, is in the business of selling people's data to the highest bidder. So, Kris, if these secret millionaires can be tracked, then anyone can be tracked, right?
Absolutely. Of course, they were particularly valuable. If you have the device and you know it belongs to a particularly powerful person, you can sell that for even more because you could put ads maybe for a political cause you want them to support or whatever you wanted to do to try to persuade them. But it can be collected on anyone, and it is collected on everyone. So rich, poor, influential, otherwise, all of that data is being collected for a time to use it.
And how is that data being used by these data collectors?
Well, kind of the gold standard for digital advertising is to collect so much information that they can serve you an ad on your phone or on your computer for a product you didn't know you wanted until you saw the ad. That's how good they've gotten with the amount of data they collect.
That is amazing. Well, Kris, thank you so much for being here. This has been wonderful information.
Thank you.
You know, we should point out that Loni has been a prosecutor in a previous life for 20 years in LA County, so she brings so much wisdom to us. So I want you to put that attorney hat on for me real quick, all right?
Switch over.
Let's talk about something that I get these letters, and I'm sure people at home do as well. I get these letters every so often saying, hey, you've been the victim of a data breach.
Yeah.
Right? And get it from some random attorney, and they ask me, hey, do you want to join this class action lawsuit? I always rip it up, but why do I get these things?
So if you have been damaged in one of these data breaches, the best way, or the easiest way, I'll say, to protect yourself is to join one of these class action lawsuits. You could try and sue yourself, but it's literally David versus Goliath, one little individual taking on AT&T. It's going to cost lots of money. If you join these lawsuits, it's strength in numbers. You're all working together. It's going to cost you less money, but the downside is it's going to take a long time, probably years, because you're talking about lots of people. And the total amount of money, it's divided up, not equally. It's divided up by the people who have the most damage. They're going to get the most, and it's going to trickle all the way down to the small people. They're going to get the less.
Well, I'm the small person, for sure.
Okay, before we go, let's talk about this Epstein Island data, because that's scary. You talk about if rich people can be hacked, who else can be hacked, but can that information be used in a court of law?
This evidence can be very helpful in a court of law. In fact, those of us who watch trials and watch the murder trial, they saw this kind of data being used. It looks like these little dots, like a treasure map following the phone, but that's the key. It follows the phone. It doesn't tell you who the people are that are holding the phone or what they are doing when they're holding the phone. So if they have evidence like this, they would have to be able to show who the person was with the phone and if they were doing something illegal at that time before they could use that evidence.